I'll make the motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Key and second by Trustee Moreno. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, excluding the items in which was called or pulled off, item 9 and 6.14. So do so by a raise of hand. Thank you. Let the record show 7-0 unanimously. The balance has been approved. Okay, let's go ahead and start with item number 6.14. Dr. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Trustee M. Trustee Williams. Tonight on the consent agenda is just the awarding of the bid to collect our delinquent taxes. And we've had a very good relationship with this firm for 25 years. And I'm positive that the appropriate protocols were in place and they were followed and they were all made in good faith. And I want to make sure that everyone knows and understands that I am not questioning this because of any doubts that I have. My only desire is that we continue our laser focus on the work that we've had around equity and access in every department of the district. And I just need to know and understand the process, and I'm asking for like just the protocols to be able for the board to review those protocols for anything that could possibly maybe hinder or cause any small business or minority women-owned business from entering into the bids competitively. So that was my purpose for really pulling it, because I think and I'm going to speak on behalf of myself, the board, I would like to understand better the process so that I feel confident when I'm approving these contracts that I know and understand the process that we went through. So I do have a couple of questions, if I'm allowed. Okay.
You will, Trustee Brown, and we'll allow for others as well, so we can kind of limit it. But we're open to your questions. Yes.
Okay. So what? And I don't know if it. Okay. Thank you. So what are the terms of their current contract? The current contracts, like what? How many? What was the years? And were there any extensions?
I believe it was a five-year contract expiring at the end of this month.
Okay, and are there any extensions?
There were no extensions on this contract, no.
Okay, and this month. Okay, and I wrote down another question. So if we, because I would like to just kind of review the processes, if we I don't know if it's tabling it or pushing it to the next month's agenda, just to allow time for us to, if the board to review and the processes, is there in any way would that interfere with the collection of our taxes or in any way disrupt any of that?
We currently are under contract through the end of the month, so we would have to renew under that term. And the statute has changed on this type of service. And so that's why it's listed this way this time, is that it's a contingent fee contract, and now that has to be posted in a certain way and approved in a certain way. So any district that's renewing these or going back out to bid, they have to be done in this way. So, we're currently collecting delinquent taxes via this firm. If we were to put it off for another month, I would have to look at the legalities of which ones they had already done the work on and earned the fees versus there would be probably no, without an extension, there would probably be no new delinquent taxes cases opened.
Mr. Woods, I'm going to kind of halt you there because the question she's asking is not the question she'd be asking of you. That is a question of the board if the decision is to table. Okay. However, I would like, if it's okay with the board, if it's okay with you, Trustee Bro, to ask other questions before we get to that moment, if it's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so before we go into that thought, there are some questions that I did have as well. And I know that you guys did a great job. It's extensive information in here, but it still led to some kind of a thought here, Mr. Woods. One of them was the fact that they put information in here about different backgrounds and things like that. I can't recall. Do you, Mr. Moreno, remember getting such details about tax collection? Yeah. So I think that was one of the driving factors. I don't recall getting so much detail. Let me ask, because I'm speaking on behalf of the board real quick here. As we have did in our board goals and our vision to look at things through the lens of equity, can you explain to us what attempt was made to make that happen, and how can we identify that actually happened in the information that you guys provided?
Yes, ma'am. On page of the board document, it's page 231 is the criteria used on this RFQ. 20% went to proven experience in the field of delinquent property tax collections, 15% to experience and expertise of personnel in connection with the collection of delinquent taxes, 15% towards taxpayer communication, 10% towards bankruptcy collection programs that they offer, 10% towards ability to provide legal counsel on property tax matters, 10% towards clarity of proposal, the submitting documents and supporting data, 10% soundness of proposed work plan and staff communications, 5% towards adequacy of the firm's financial position, and 5% towards their commitment to equal employment opportunity. Each of the firms submitted their percentage of women minorities in the attorney pools, as well as in their ownership or their partnering in the firm, their management of the firm. Both firms had significant percentages. The firm we're recommending had, of 59 attorneys, had 41% who are women, 32% are minorities. And the executive committee that governs the firm is 53% women and 40% minorities. And additionally, they have 75% of the team leaders for the Alief account are women or minorities.
Okay. So, Mr. Woods, I would clearly state that in our district, we've been talking about it, but we haven't gotten there yet on a utilization or even a recognition. And even when you speak of that, we do know that people self-identify. So, you know, it's great to hear that, but as long as I know that they're self-identifying, there's no certification of that information. So I'm going to leave that there. The other thing that, in all saying that, this is an RFQ, correct? Which is different. Our RFPs, they have criteria that are set by the whatever standards, state standards or what have you. With this RFQ, who's the driver of these criteria?
The district set those criteria.
The district set the criteria.
And it was communicated as part of the proposal, the RFQ document that each of the firms then submitted their proposal based on knowing that these were the criteria they would be judged.
Okay. I wanted that to be clear to everyone, because I do remember when we decided to go out for our board council, we did the criteria as well, and we were very thoughtful. I think Ms. Key was a part of it for us we weren't even looking at things in lens of equity, but it mattered to us at that time. So I'm glad that it's beginning to matter. But one of the things that I looked at with this and was concerned about, was there a factor of collecting taxes in-house versus externally? Was that one of the factors of the committee? Anyone on the committee member, did you think of that, or was it we're collecting taxes this way, so therefore? And I know, Deanna,
You mean use our own staff?
Yes.
Yes. So it's been determined that we do not have the staff, and that's why we went out for an RFQ, and that's why we've had a delinquent tax attorney firm on retainer or so to speak on contract, because we do not have the programming staff, we do not have the staff to the legal staff to be able to show up in court and address these issues. We don't have bankruptcy attorney on staff, whereas these firms do, and that's what they do.
So help me out then. What makes that different than what we've been doing in the past? Because we still maintain our tax office. So what is?
So these are for the delinquent taxes. So we send out the bills, the tax bills, and then our tax collection department, our tax office, collects those who are on time or who are slightly delinquent but come in to pay their fees or their penalties and interest. But if it becomes a delinquent at a certain point in time, then the delinquent tax attorney will start sending notices and communicate with that taxpayer to find out, is there another way that they can pay the taxes? Has there been a financial hardship? Are they going into bankruptcy? What's the situation? And helps deal with that legally, which our tax collection department can't answer those legal questions and negotiate with the taxpayer.
Okay, I'm glad you're sharing that, because that was quite confusing. I'm thinking we're doing it in-house. We have a tax office. What role do they really play and why? What was the difference in what they've been doing for 25 years? And and I'm going to yield to my other colleagues, because I did caution Dr. Bro about the timing. The thing that gets me is 25 years of relationship, to me, begins with the level of comfort. And that's why I needed to question what was your criteria and what was the effort. Was this business as usual, or is this something different?
So we requested a proposal from those firms. And frankly, there's two major firms in this area that perform this, that have the legal staff with the expertise. We received two proposals. Both were very substantial documents detailing the points that we requested, the information about their firms. We then held an in-person presentation where the firms came in to present to the committee. And so we were able to ask questions based on their proposal responses. And frankly, both firms are excellent. They're both top notch in their field, and it's just when you looked at the criteria and the way the committee evaluated it, it was barely tipped to one firm, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that their proposal hit on all cylinders that we asked for in the RFQ. But also that we have direct experience on their success.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed, because when I saw the criteria, I was disappointed in the thought that since it was something that was not the standard, that there would have been an ask of the board for some kind of input. And I know that we might not be as bright as you guys on it, but still at the end of the day, it does come back to the board to do an approval. So I would have thought that, did our new person have any input on it, or is just
she was on the committee as well.
She was on the
Ms. Metelsky, yes.
Madam President.
Yes.
I know I'm new to the board, but I too would have thought that there would have been some sort of inquiries to the board or recommendations to the board other than this coming out at this time for approval without discussion. And I too am concerned how this firm was chosen. So I echo that same concern. I think most of all, I'm concerned. I know both firms very well. They're excellent firms, but in this, and have used them myself. So, but be that as is may, both of them are very good. And I just wanted to know the criterion. And I think this is going to require some more discussion. I really do, as to what and how this came about. I know one firm, the firm that you have chosen, does not currently have a CFO. Are you aware of that?
Does not currently have a CFO, no.
They don't. And that CFO really directs the activities of this firm. Purdue.
So, Trustee Patrick, before we go into that, thank you. That's enlightening information, but it wasn't a part of it. So, forgive me, board, for going into this. I'm going to go back to Trustee Bro. Given the information that we've discussed at the table, is that still your desire to table this item? Or are you going to make a motion for that?
It is, again, I just wanted to state, it's not, it's not about who was chosen. That is not even in my thought process. It's just that the work that we've done around access and equity, we would like to see it across, all our practices. And that I really wanted to focus on just understanding the process that we do. So if I would like to make a motion that we table.
Can I ask another question before we make a motion? So this is in regards to maybe possibly what you're making a motion. How is this going to affect if we do make a motion, if it's going to table it or so forth, on a contract like this, especially if it's the end of the month? Can they extend it for a month till we can kind of get some more questions answered till next board meeting? Or how's that going to affect? I know there's some question about cases that are already being worked on and situations like that, or what? I mean, sometimes there's times we can't extend a contract. It just needs to happen, we have.
So
that's my question.
I'm going to also call on our board counsel as well, to kind of guide us in this. This is our thought, and you've heard the board, so.
Madam President, this is an award proposal that is being presented to you by your administration. It was developed in accordance with advanced criteria that were put together and processed and used to secure the proposals. It would not be appropriate if you were to delay. You can't revise the criteria on the back end. You can't start changing weights or things of that nature. So it's one thing to have questions, but I do want to advise the board that if you're not comfortable with the recommendation, your only real choice is to start over. You don't change the weights at this point of the process. Collection of delinquent taxes is an ongoing process that occurs on an ongoing basis. There are certain key calendar dates, and frankly, I have a fair amount of experience in that area, but that's not our firm's expertise or area of practice. So one of the questions I would ask to Mr. Woods is, what would be the impact of delaying on the calendar cycle by which I believe taxes become delinquent as of February 1. There are obviously several months there before penalties begin to attach or lawsuits could be filed on the basis of delinquencies. But I don't know what the impact of a delay might be on the statutory calendar for the collection of delinquencies. I think that would be an important consideration for the board.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to say something, if it's okay.
Yes.
I'm not concerned with the process. I'm sure, given the applications that y'all had, that both firms were fully qualified to do what needs to be done. What are the terms of the new contract? Is it another 5-year? Annually renewable?
Right.
Okay. And I guess what Darlene was saying and what I'm saying is, in furthering our thoughts on doing everything through the lens of equity, that we look at the processes that we use, maybe not in this case so we don't mess up timelines, but looking at future practices. I think, because I'm from an instructional background, I think about how standardized tests are written. Standardized tests have enough implicit bias that not all student populations perform the same on those exams. It's not because there's different ability levels within those population groups. It's what they've been exposed to, how they've experienced it. And so I want to make sure that we're giving good advantages to people who may or may not be competitive using the criteria that we currently have, and start looking at that process about how can we improve it? How can we for want of a better term, I've used it in 504 for years, is level the playing field for minority-owned business, women-owned business, local businesses, because from what it sounds like, no one local even applied to present a proposal. Am I right?
Correct. Both are roughly statewide or national firm.
Okay. And so I guess my concern is that just like we've done in instruction, that we start looking at our business practices as well, so that we are looking through everything. I mean, the board made a commitment to being equitable and looking at district processes through the lens of equity. We've started that in instruction, and I'd like us to take a look at what's going on in business as well. I don't think anybody's doing anything wrong, but we can always improve.
If I could,
Thank you. Give me 1 second, our board attorney.
Madam President, I just did want to provide some information to respond to that last point. The collection of delinquent taxes involves very large and customized software that frankly these companies develop that are largely proprietary. I do know in recent years there's been certain consolidation within this practice area. So it's for me, it's not a surprise that you don't see smaller firms applying because it is an area, particularly for a large school district, where frankly the number of entities who can handle it well is limited. I think where you do look at getting increased participation and local participation is with subcontractors who can appropriately handle certain parts of it. I have not reviewed the bid proposals that you have, Mr. Wood, but I know both of these firms do attempt to include some diversity in their subcontractors and others that they bring to the seats.
And that's what I was on the criteria. This is probably one of the very few first, if you will, RFQs that we've gone out with where we did include it as a percentage on this, because it wasn't truly a bid based on price as much as it is on qualifications. And the firm that we brought to you, from what I remember, was even slightly more minority based than the other. So in our mind and estimation, we were doing that through the lens of equity.
Okay.
In particular with Purdue Brandon was they kicked off their presentation talking about the number of attorneys that were kind of homegrown, had started with the firm in the call center and worked their way up to where they are now attorneys, gone back to school, got their degrees. They talked a lot about their mentorship program, their equity ownership, the equity the minority participation and women participation in their executive committee that actually governs the firm. So the fact that they highlighted it so much in their presentation and in their proposal was one of the things that stood out, knowing that we are moving in the direction of viewing things through the lens of equity. And I do just want to clarify also, I said this was a 1-year contract. It's actually a 3-year contract with options to renew after that.
Superintendent Chambers, you had a comment?
Well, I was going to clarify. So it would be a 3-year deal with the annual exercise after 3 years?
Which we could not, or we could continue to renew on an annual basis, yes.
Well, I was going to suggest, well, first of all, board, we are continuing in every practice that we participate in to use equity as appropriately and based on the situation we're involved in, we're attempting to do that. I would argue that this particular RFQ is perhaps the most we've ever, was the first time we've actually included it in our metric language, but it is, I felt a very good attempt to begin moving towards that direction. If you disagree with that, that's fine, we can discuss that. But I want to be really clear about what our attempt was, what Charles and Deanna's attempt was as we went through this. So, but if we didn't rise to the level or the bar that you have, we need to visit, and we can huddle back up on that. in the spirit of avoiding unintended consequences, that I am highly concerned that if this contract were to not be renewed and we enter January 1st of 2022 without a delinquent tax attorney, as you know, December 31st, and then the last date without penalty is January 31st to pay your taxes. I don't know what the consequences of that action would be, but we would run the risk what word am I looking for? We would run the risk of limiting or minimizing our ability to collect delinquent taxes, which is a 12-month-a-year process anyway. It's not so much collecting the taxes that aren't paid on 12/31/2021 or even 1/1/2022. It's the ones that weren't paid in 2021 or 12/31 of 2020, 1/31 of 21. So it's that part of it that we're concerned about. So I was under thinking that if we had a 1-year annual, that my suggestion would be that you consider approving what we have to avoid that unintended consequence. We work on this continued definition of lens of equity or whatever what our definition is versus your expectations, and then come back to this particular issue in 1 year. But if that's 3 years, if it's 3 years,
Can that? I just heard that it was a 3-year contract.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Pastor Patrick. I wasn't sure. I was more confident in what I was getting ready to suggest, thinking it was 1 year than the 3 years. So,
But can we do a 1 year?
Can we modify, David? Can we modify?
I don't think
The
so.
current-
I don't think so.
Look at the original terms that you asked for, and if you called for a 3-year term again, I'm
Yeah.
really caution you that.
Yeah, that would be the issue.
Terms of-
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right.
I have a quick question on the percentage of success on the delinquent taxes for these two. If I'm understanding it right, there's 2 large firms that handle school districts within the state or nation that participated. So what's the percentage that they've done? Because I mean, if we had situations where we were like 5% or, have no luck, then I would say let's look out for some smaller companies want to grow into it. But what I'm understanding with the attorney is that there's a lot of legal and consolidation of teamwork to get this job done for a small firm to do.
So it's a very difficult comparison to make, and for a couple of reasons. One is tax base, ability to pay, and those who are delinquent and the reasons behind it. But with the spirit of that, knowing that you can't judge the 2 firms on Alief accounts because the 2 firms haven't been collecting taxes on Alief accounts for the same tax year with the same taxpayer base.
Well, I'm not talking about comparing.
across,
I'm just saying what's the average.
Across their experience, they were relatively within a few points of each other, percentage points, depending on what district they were in. Some they were better, some they were worse.
Is there a
Mr.
number?
Woods, I don't think that's my colleague's
Oh.
question. My colleague's
what's the
question
percentage
is, what's
of
the
collection?
percentage of
Say last
collection?
year, what was their percentage of collection on delinquent taxes last year?
What was
Same
it?
firm, correct?
Yes, and I have that information.
Approximately. I mean,
They have met our collection goals that we set for them each year. So by the end of the year, in August, we're usually somewhere above 99% collected.
Between 99 and 100% total collected.
So, okay, we've discussed this. My final question, working with a firm for 25 years, is there any desire to ever choose another? Because I still come back to this thought of comfort. When you do business for so long with people, you become very comfortable.
Yep.
And we know in education, there is no comfort. There's no comfort of students, parents, teachers are working hard. But, I hate to say it, it just seems like it's just easier for you guys to continue that way, And forgive me, I'm not trying to, Deanna, I'm trying to articulate this as best I can. Because when I see a firm, and I think that Mr. Moreno has also suggested that, when we see firms that we've been doing business with for 20-some years, you guys may have confidence in that, but the public is like, if you're doing business that long, it becomes questionable. So.
Very common. When we looked at references for both firms, we received references from 3 clients for each of these firms. It's very very
Common.
common for both firms to have long-standing relationships with the districts they work with because they do a good job collecting the taxes on it.
And Ms. Williams, I'd like to make in regards to your last comment on that, is that, yes, there are people in the community may say, well, you've been with 25 years with this firm, and how come you don't check? And there's these other companies that can do it, and there's always this thought. But as a board, we look at it, and for the last 14 years I've been on board, I've been nothing but 150 to 200% confident of our financial department that will go out and seek and do things in the best interest of the district. When we talk about raises, we talk about all the other benefits. We look at them and say, Deanna, what do you think? What is your thoughts? You've done so well for the district for how many years that she's now retiring, but do that. So I may not necessarily have the confidence in that firm or that part of it, but I have confidence, me personally, have confidence in our financial department of they're doing the best interests of the district and to do that. If there are other options, better options, less price, I'm sure they would have found it, in my opinion.
Can I address one question that you brought up, Ms. Williams, also? And I think Ms. Key said this too, about leveling the playing field. Personally, I don't think any one of us think that one firm is necessarily that we should stay with a firm just because we've been with a firm. And that's the reason, frankly, that we went out for this RFQ, because this is the first time that I know of in the history of Alief that we've done an RFQ for delinquent tax attorneys. Once we were with them, we never issued an RFQ. We never sampled the market. This time we did. We purposely went out and said, what's out there? The bid notification was sent to 312 vendors who have registered for tax attorney services, and 8 firms picked up the documents, were asked for the documents. 2 firms, the 2 firms we've been talking about, submitted a response. It was published in the Chronicle. It ran the full length. We had question and answers for anybody that wanted to. So as far as giving people the opportunity, I feel like that in the firm that we've chosen, we've selected the smaller of the 2 firms. So if it's the small guy that you want to have a level playing field, I think that's what we've brought. If it's a tilt to the minority women owned and operated and hired, then I think we've tilted the direction that you wanted. If it's the cost is the same, both firms. There is no difference. Our tax office, our collections office will work with either one. It's easier for the staff that do the key entry and everything to call people they know, they've talked to, because they know who to ask a certain question to. That's comfort. That's comfort in our staff being efficient. But that's not necessarily the only reason that we would say to go with the firm we're going with. It's all those things combined, and that's what we tried to bring you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Well, with that, I want to thank the board for this opportunity to have dialogue concerning this, because as stated, we hardly get a chance, other than just to approve it, we don't really get a chance to talk about this. And like you said, as far as for tax, delinquents, we've not had this one before. So thank you, board, for indulging me and the questions and the comments that have been made. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 6.14.
Yes, Ms. Williams, I'd like to make a motion to approve RFQ 2138, delinquent tax attorney services, and take action to approve a contingent fee contract with Purdue, Brandon Field, Collins, and Mott LLP pursuant to section 630 of the tax code.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. May I have a second? I'm second. It's been moved by Mr. Moreno and second by Dr. Lily Chong. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Thank you. Opposed? All those opposed? Abstain? Let the record show that it passes with a vote of 4, 1 opposed, and 2 abstain. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Board.
Woods.
Charles, Deanna, thank you for y'all's work on this. A lot of detailed work went into it. Thank you.
And can I have just one point of discussion? I apologize. And I do want to thank you all for the work that you all have done. I feel like the discussion kind of got off rails of my intention was, and it was just truly to seek clarification for my understanding. So I want to make that clear, and that be on record, that the whole discussion about faith and, the job that you all have done since I've been here, I've had no concerns. It was simply about the process. So I want to make that clear of what my intentions were.
Thank you, Dr. Pro. Thank you. And with that, Trustee Patrick, you had also pulled item number 9. Is there any further discussion? I kind of feel like that they both were bundled.
They were.
Even though,
I remove my objection.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I think that this is an item that requires a motion to approve. Is this a report? Okay, thank you. All righty. With that, board, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 7 of the agenda.